a troublemaker. I've been a late night player. I've been broke as a joke. I've been a money maker. I've been a record breaker. Taking credit as an educator. I've been known to spit the flows and make it shaky, shaky thing. Popping, locking, stopping, let it hang. Watch us as we drop this hip hop, it's like it stings. We make the whole room drop and everybody sing. We want the funk. We gotta have that funk. We kick it old school. We think we're so cool. We take it back to the past. We gonna act a fool. Up jumps the middle finger, make my yay.
The Fanatical View. I am your host, Scott D. Lewis. Not live on a Thursday evening, but coming to you on a taped delay. We are here taping this show on Monday, the day after the first weekend of March Madness 324, airing in our usual Thursday evening, 327, I believe that day will be. So we're here 6 to 6:30, not live though. So of course this would be the week that everybody would want to call in, but the phone lines are not open. So yes.
It's a little brisk today.
Another brisk day, 17 degrees when I woke up this morning. Not what I'm looking forward to at this time of year, Bob, but I guess there's not much more we can do about it.
I mean, it was beautiful on Saturday, it's 65 degrees, and then Sunday it goes back to 40 again.
Yeah. That, of course, is my right-hand man that you hear right there, Mr. Bob Roth Jr. Bob, how's it going besides the weather?
Things are getting better since our
tough week last week, I know. I hope Jolene and her family are doing better now. And everybody made it through that tough week last week.
Yep, we did, and we have some better news too.
And you have gone public.
Yes.
With the news that we all knew about and had to hold our tongue for these past little while now.
Yes.
Well, why don't you break the news to everybody, Bob?
I'm engaged.
Bob is engaged.
Yeah.
All right.
March 26, 2016.
He finally found somebody that would say yes. Don't let go of her, Bob.
No, I will not. She's my one and only.
All right. Well, you guys make a great couple. We're very happy to hear that news. So congratulations. And now we can go public, and I can call her your fiancée.
Yes.
Very nice. Bob's show, of course, Spotlight on Tuesday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 12. I'm sure he'll be going to a lot of wedding functions now.
Yes, I will.
Bringing you bridal parties and how to get your flowers done for a wedding. You'll be seeing that on Spotlight on the next.
No, not necessarally that. I mean,
I saw on the ticker there, Dayton versus Danbury on your next show.
Yes, It was a good game. It was a sold out crowd, over 3,000 people. They had the awards for the FHL.
Season's starting to wind down. Danbury is still doing well.
Danbury, I think it's either 1 point or 1 point behind Dayton.
So it's a tough battle right there.
Yeah, and so they got 2 games left this upcoming weekend. And the season's over and the playoffs will start. And whoever finishes first will have a bye. We'll play Watertown, and that'll be basically it.
And then it's playoff time?
Yeah.
All right. Of course, Mike Toohey is in the control room running things today. Expose Cinema, his hard-hitting show, Friday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So tune into that to see what is going on in the world. A lot of politics on that show, but he presents 2 sides of the argument pretty much. He likes to keep everybody abreast of what's happening and look at every angle to see what's going on in the world today. So that's good. All right, Bob, March Madness.
Yes.
Pretty good opening weekend of games. There was a handful of blowouts thrown in there, but for the most part, tight games. Nail biters, some buzzer beaters, a bunch of overtime games, upsets.
Yes, especially the Duke game was a big upset.
Duke, down goes Duke, as everybody jumps on board that train. Yeah. Always a great day when Duke goes down, especially, Bob, when it's in the first round.
I know.
Mercer, mercy me. Down goes Duke.
Yeah.
Love it. 78-71, Mercer pulled it off. They beat Duke in that second day, Friday's afternoon. Actually, first game of the day on Friday, so that was nice to get Friday going that way. Thursday, the upset started pretty quick as well.
Yeah.
Gotta love it when the committee, there's a lot of things to complain about the committee, plenty to complain about this year as well. But they do some tricky things with the matchups, and they set some things up that are pretty nice. Ohio State has been dodging in-state smaller school Dayton for years. They will not play them in a non-conference regular season battle.
Right.
And so the tournament says, hey, we're just going to force you to play them right here, right now, round one.
Or you can go home.
And that's it. And they went home anyways.
So.
As a Dayton gets it done 60-59. The Flyers beat Ohio State, one of 6 A-10 teams in the tournament this year.
That went down.
Well, Dayton is riding high, so they're doing good. We'll get to the rest of the A-10 momentarily. And then another upset, although I had both of these in my bracket, and this was kind of perhaps a bad omen for the AAC and UConn. AAC, of course, got no respect from the committee as SMU left out of the tournament. Larry Brown with his great season there. That was a shock. And then the seedings as well, Bob.
Oh, I know.
Really no respect at all. And then Cincinnati goes down and Harvard, the Ivy League school, comes through.
But it's nice to see something like our Harvard,
Yeah, well, Harvard's no joke. They've been in the tournament now under Tommy Amaker 3 times. They won their first game last year. They won again this year in round 1. So they take out Cincy 61-57, and you're wondering if the AAC isn't as good as advertised.
Yeah,
some of the other upsets on the day before we get to UConn's round 1 game. North Dakota State, Bob, who had the Bison, spelled with a Z, over Oklahoma in overtime. That was a great game, 80-75. Right there we saw St. Louis against NC State. What a comeback that was in that game, Bob. NC State had this game all but wrapped up. Got to make your free throws, Bob.
Yeah,
Couldn't make a free throw as St. Louis went the hack-a-shack route, really, in the last 3-4 minutes of the game, and they come back from 16 points down in like the last 4 or 5 minutes to win in overtime against NC State. So that was a crazy game. San Diego State, New Mexico State go overtime. Providence lost a nail-biter, Bob, against Carolina Tar Heels. Oh, was that rough. That was a rough one. I had Providence in that game. And they really played a tremendous game. 2 bad bounce rebounds in the end of that game. North Carolina came up with the goods. Actually, they got the foul with 2 seconds left to go to the free throw line and get that win. I thought that was a cheap foul, really. That game should have gone to overtime. Not a good whistle right there. The other game that had the craziest of plays, craziest of finishes, and really a phantom call reminded me of the old Knicks playoff game grandmama Larry Johnson 4-point play incident of years gone by. Stephen F. Austin against VCU. VCU, again, much like NC State, could not salt this game away from the free throw line, and still 4-point lead with 3.6 seconds left. And the 3-point shooter gets the ball on the wing, goes up, takes the shot. The VCU player defends him, comes flying in front of him with the hand up to contest the shot, makes no contact, no contact whatsoever. The Stephen F. Austin shooter kicks his feet out, Bob, and then to draw his own contact and falls to the ground. Ref calls the whistle, 4-point play to tie the game and force overtime with 3.5 seconds left. Completely ridiculous, unbelievable. And Stephen F. Austin then pulls the upset by winning in overtime 77-75. 6 overtimes, Bob, in that opening round of action. And another game that was close as well. Manhattan was beating Louisville, Bob, with 3 minutes to go.
I know.
Unbelievable. Louisville got 2 big 3-point shots in the final 3 minutes, and they ended up winning 71-64. But that game, they were losing with just over 3 minutes left. So a lot of crazy stuff going on early and often. Thursday night's round 1 tilt, UConn St. Joe's. Things were dicey early, Bob. Edge of your seat from the start. St. Joe's was hitting shots left and right. They had good backcourt play, good interior play. They had a big man who was really just passing the ball, creating offense. Really a fine performance by St. Joe's, who had control of this game through most of it. They were up by 10 in the first half, and it was just not looking like it was going to be a game UConn could come back and win. They could not get themselves situated in this game, but they kept banging away. They kept chipping away, and Napier ended up with 24 points, and 9 of those came in overtime after the big man, Brema, came up with a huge three-point play, Bob, in the final 30, 40 seconds of regulation as he grabbed a missed shot for an offensive rebound, went back up strong, hoop and the harm, calmly sinks the free throw to tie the game up, which would end up forcing overtime, and it was in the OT. And actually, they almost won it in regulation. They drew up the old the Drew play. What was that team? Now it wasn't Gonzaga, Valparaiso play from years ago, with a hook and ladder basically, inbound to midcourt with the player streaking down the sideline, quick pass, and Napier was open for three, almost won it in regulation, but he did come up with 9 points in OT. The team as a whole sank 14 straight free throws, bridging the very end of the game into overtime to seal that win as they end up pulling away from St. Joe's 89-81 in overtime. Crazy game, very physical. There was much cursing going on in my house, screaming and yelling at the TV. The cats were running scared. It was not pretty.
You didn't throw anything. You didn't throw a TV?
No, I didn't throw anything at the TV, but it was oof. DeAndre Daniels had a big game, Bob, and he also gave them the early lead in overtime by fouling out St. Joe's big man by causing a foul on a three-point play, driving the lane, hitting after the foul. He had 18 points. Boatwright, I thought, had a real good game. He hit some big three-point shots in the first half when Napier was struggling and the team as a whole was struggling, and he kind of kept them hanging around. Gaffai, who's played great this year, 10 points. He also did a great job because he had 3 fouls in the first half, and he did not foul out of this game as he kept himself in it. So that was crucial. So huge game for UConn as they held on, forced the OT, won it in OT. Then we moved to round two, Bob, and there was some action going on in round two as well. We saw Florida and Michigan winning easily in the first day. St. Louis was giving Louisville trouble again, Bob. The 66-51 final score for Louisville misleading. St. Louis was winning that game under 8 minutes to go in the game before Louisville went on a run late to close that thing out. And again, we saw Harvard giving Michigan State everybody's jump on the bandwagon pick after their Big Ten championship performance. They gave them everything they could handle. That game was tied late before Michigan State could win 80-73. We saw Wisconsin they were down big to Oregon in that game, and they rallied. Somehow they ended up winning that game by 8, as that was a tight game as well. We saw Dayton, Bob. Nice job by the Flyers taking care of the phony Jim Boeheim up there, the ACC shill. Not so much. Go back to Raleigh, Jim. Your Syracuse Orange got squeezed by the Dayton Flyers. They're out. Jimmy B putting his hands out. What happened?
Orange men went.
Dayton representing the A-10, 55-53. They squeezed the Cuse in that game. Syracuse's offensive struggles continued late in the season, and they continue right there, knocking them out. How about this game, Bob? Iowa State, the Cyclone, knocking off the Tar Heels. NC looked like they were going to come up with this win as they had the lead. They went back and forth, really. Iowa State had the lead early in this game. North Carolina rallied, took the lead. Looked like they were going to come up with the win. Big play late as they took the lead on a running bank shot in the lane with 3 seconds left. North Carolina tried to rush up the court and get a quick timeout, and they couldn't do it. Time elapsed while they were trying to set a play, so they didn't even get a last shot off. Iowa State wins it. Big game for them. Nice job. We also saw, how about this Pac-10 team that nobody was talking about, Stanford, the Cardinal, knocking out Kansas. What happened to Wiggins, Bob?
I don't know.
One of these top recruits guy who's going to go pro, probably 4 points Bobby had in this game. They bottled him up. He only took 6 shots in the game total. So if he goes pro, he's going in off a terrible performance,
Wait a
Bob.
minute. He could end up with the Knicks or the Nets, you know.
I don't know. The game of the day, really, and this one hurts me in my bracket because my bracket actually looks quite good.
Oh, yeah?
Except for
What pro?
the Shockers. I had Wichita State doing big damage.
And
Wasn't to be.
They got damaged themselves.
As the tournament committee really gave them no love at all, setting them up in not only a tough bracket, but a tough top half of the bracket, Bob. They get Kentucky and Louisville in the top half of the bracket. Unbelievable. This is a team that's undefeated, overall number 2 seed, 2 in the nation, and they got to play Kentucky in round 2. Kentucky comes up with their best game of the season, hitting shots from way downtown, deep three-point shots, ridiculous, no business. Some of them, they even hit a bank shot on one of them, Bob. So Kentucky played way above their head. In the second half, I felt the officials completely tilted the game in Kentucky's favor. One play in particular on an inbound play where Wichita State converts a backdoor for what should have been a three-point play. They didn't give them the continuation. There wasn't even a continuation. It happened on the shot. It was on the inbound. So they waved off the basket, and Wichita State ended up missing those free throws. So they got nothing out of that play. That was big. And Wichita State did miss a couple more free throws late. You got to give Kentucky credit. They made a bunch of free throws in this game, and they hit those shots which they had no business making from way downtown. And they beat Wichita State 78-76 early for Wichita State. Had a huge game, much like that kid for Providence. Cotton had a huge game against North Carolina for not going over 30 points, playing out of his mind. But he did not get the shot on the final possession, Bob. Van Fleet, the point guard, their senior leader, who's a great player, but he was a facilitator in this game. He hadn't taken a shot all game. I don't know why they drew it up. He's a 46% three-point shooter on the season, so I get that. But he was facilitating all game long to the other guys who had the hot hand. He hadn't taken a shot since the first half, basically. And they draw it up for him to try to take a three-pointer to win it. They had over 3 seconds left, 3.6 seconds. I thought they should have attacked the rim and gone for 2 to force overtime instead of going for a deep 3 to try to win it. So the Shockers get shocked. Undefeated no more. Kentucky advances to take on Louisville. So, of course, that's a marquee matchup. I think the nation would have been more tuned in. I mean, we've seen Kentucky. We've seen Louisville. I think everybody really would have been tuned in and locked in to see Wichita State play Kentucky in the Sweet 16. The Cinderella darling, even though a number 1 seed.
I would like to see somebody else for a change,
I mean, I think that would have been unbelievable. I was on the edge of my seat watching that Wichita State-Kentucky game. I'm sure the ratings for that game are going to be high. And then, of course, UConn got the matchup. And this was the other thing, Bob. Everybody I heard picking St. Joe's to beat UConn in that round 1 to set up the Philadelphia matchup of St. Joe's versus Villanova. Hello, it was all about UConn facing Villanova in a real Big East matchup. That was what was going to happen, and that is what happened. How's that regular season championship tasting for you right about now, Villanova? A little bit phony, a little bit fraudulent after UConn puts the beat down 77-65 on Nova on Saturday night. Late tip, 10 o'clock tip. This was like, we complained all year long, Bob, about UConn playing all those 9 o'clock games. Might have, did them some good finally as they were used to it. They played like 6 or 7 9 o'clock or later tip games this year. This one tipped at 10 o'clock up in Buffalo, and UConn pretty much controlled this game. Napier, 25 points after being in foul trouble in the first half. 21 points he had in the second half. Big time game for him. So he tweaked his ankle late in this game. We're going to have to see what happens with that as far as that goes. They were down 19-9. They gave Villanova a bunch of free points on a flagrant foul, on a three-point shot foul. So, they were down early, but they took a 25-24 halftime lead, largely in part to a 16-1 run they had in that first half, Bob.
Right.
And it was in large part because of the bench, which outscored Villanova's bench 26-5. Napier went to the bench with foul trouble. Terrence Samuel, who's been getting a lot of time lately down the stretch, and Lasan Chroma coming up big. He's been an integral part of their team for most part this year. A lot of balance. You saw, Brema do well again. Daniels and Boatwright, of course, carry the act. And then Napier, he was hitting, heat check shots in that second half.
Right.
Launching three-pointers from distance, putting away Nova, reminding them of what a real Big East game is like and what a real Big East team does to a team like Villanova. They beat them, and they beat them handily, and they advanced to the Sweet 16. Kevin Ollie getting it done, Bob, in his second year. First time he was eligible for postseason play, and Napier stayed with him, didn't go pro, came back, and they get to the Sweet 16, Bob, and they're going to face Iowa State in a rematch. If you remember, the last time we saw Coach Calhoun and we saw UConn in a postseason type situation, they were getting shocked by the Cyclones in a round one, early elimination 2 years ago when they were last eligible for the postseason play. So they've got revenge on their mind, and they'll be taking on an Iowa State team who came in ranked pretty high. Most people had them as a favorite going into that North Carolina game. They suffered an injury, and I don't know if this kid, their top player, is going to be back for the Sweet 16 or not. The game will be on Friday night at Madison Square Garden. So that's a big, plus for UConn if he does not return. Of course, Napier's got the ankle thing as well. He was able to come back to the game, but ankles sometimes flare up the next day. So we'll keep our eye on the injury situation, but it's going to be a big night at the Garden on Friday night. Iowa State, UConn, 7:27 tip. Later after that game, Virginia versus Michigan State. Virginia, the ACC team nobody wanted to talk about, they advanced to their Sweet 16, coming out of their bracket with a nice performance against Memphis, who did win their first round game. But they could not come up with the upset. Virginia 78-60 over Memphis yesterday in one of the late games, so they took care of business. They will be facing Michigan State, facing the winner of Iowa State UConn on Sunday. We got also Friday night's games are Michigan versus Tennessee. I had Tennessee, Bob, in the Sweet 16.
You had Tennessee?
I had Michigan as well.
Wow.
So I got that one in Indy. Louisville versus Kentucky, big-time matchup Friday night there, late game. Thursday games, raise your hand if you had Stanford versus Dayton.
No.
I highly doubt anybody, and I do mean anybody, had Stanford versus Dayton. That's one of the Thursday night games. Florida versus UCLA, two big programs. Florida, the overall number one in the nation. So we'll see about that. Those games are being played in Memphis. Thursday night's games as well. Wisconsin, who advances out of the Big Ten against Baylor, the Big 12 representative. And I kick myself for not picking Baylor, Bob. When Baylor gets to the postseason, they get to the Sweet 16. Remember that next year and remind me.
Okay.
Because when they're in, they win at least a couple of games. They've gone to the Sweet 16, I think 6 of the last times they've been in the tournament. Not the last 6 years, but the years that they get in, they advance. So they're there, and I should have picked them, and I did not. Creighton, what was I thinking? Not good. And then, of course, Arizona versus the Mountain West lone representative, San Diego State. Those games are being played in Anaheim. All right, let's break this down by conference, Bob.
Okay.
What do you got? What were you gonna say there? Anything?
Well, it's kind of quick thing. I know that we have baseball in the
yeah, we're gonna get to some of that quickly. I just want to wrap up the March Madness.
Okay.
Let's break it down by conference real quick. We'll go through it. AAC, Louisville and UConn still alive out of the 4 teams. Memphis did win their first round game. Cincinnati was out in that first round game. We're only down to 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yeah. We've
Okay,
been
so
moving.
maybe we're not going to break that down. Let's move on then, Bob. You got it right. Major League Baseball did get underway as the Dodgers down under take down the D-backs. Dodgers officially 2-0 on the season.
Pretty good.
It's kind of crazy considering the fact that
playing,
spring training is
yeah,
still going on.
I know, and they're playing overseas. And
I don't know if I should be concerned about my Red Sox, Bob. 8-15,
Yeah.
not doing so good. Yankees 15-10, Mets 13-11.
We're not bad. Speaking of baseball,
All right, quickly because I want to touch on a couple other things.
Westers are going to be starting in June.
All right, and who's the man? Make it quick.
We have our Western breakfast coming up
All right.
with former Yankee, Met, and Red Sox, Rick Cerrone.
Ricky Cerrone is the keynote speaker. All right, we'll talk about that more as it approaches.
Huh?
We'll talk about it more as it approaches. All right, NBA real quick. Knicks big loss yesterday to the Cavs. Their 8-game winning streak goes by the boards. They did get that big win against the Pacers last week in front of new president of operations, Phil the Thrill Zen Master Jackson.
Is he going to just stay in the front office, or is he
Front
coming
office, $12 million consulting job.
Wow.
Hey, I'd like to get a $12 million a year consulting job for the Knicks. I could probably help them out as well.
Sure.
So they remain 4 games out of the loss column behind the Hawks. So that's the big thing right there. Hockey, as we are coming down the wire here, the Boston Bruins, Bob, 12 straight victories. Gotta love that. They have gone above and beyond the Pittsburgh Penguins, overall number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference at 103 points. The Pens at 97. Your Rangers in 3rd place in the Metropolitan Division with 82 points. They're basically holding off the Caps and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Rangers got 82 points, Capitals 79, Columbus 78. So, there's about 10 games or so left there as well, about 10 games or so in the NBA. So a lot to be decided in the final 2 weeks of the year. The Knicks are off to the West Coast. They take on the Fakers tonight, I believe.
That should be a good game.
Yeah, that should be good. I got my eye on those Charlotte Bobcats. They're inching closer to 500, Bob.
Yeah.
As they are 34-36. I think they're going to make 500 by the season's end. We'll have at least 6 teams at 500 out of the Eastern Conference. Crazy as that seems, that could be a good thing. Brooklyn might actually catch Toronto as well. Only 1 game out in the loss column for first place.
Anything's possible.
So they might catch them. All right, I think we're out of time. We will bid adieu, and we will see you next week.
Hopefully next week.
Yeah, I think we're here live next week. Enjoy. Hope you enjoyed the tape show. We'll be back, and we'll see if UConn is in the Final Four.
Yes.
All right.